Hi guys, so today I'll be reviewing A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is actually the first installment of the Actor series, and as of this moment, there are already a novella about the series and one spin-off novel. So there's currently news that this series is going to be adapted to Hulu, and I think that's the reason I want to do this review, because this is actually my first time reading Sarah J. Maas' novel, and I'm really excited to get started. Before we get started, I would like to point out that this review does contain spoiler of A Court of Thorns and Roses and possibly the second book of the series. So if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to leave this video, but don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But if you're totally fine with that, let's just get started. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of a synopsis of the story. So the story mainly follows our protagonist, Farah, a 19-year-old huntress from Prythian, and then one day she kills a wolf. After that, Tamlin, a fae who is the ruler of one of the courts in Prythian, takes her away from her home for retribution. Throughout her life, she's always been told that fairies are evil and dangerous, but after residing in Tamlin's court for a while, her feelings grew from disdain to admiration as she found out that fairies aren't that bad. But Farah found an impending threat that grows over Prythian, and she must find a way to stop this threat in order to protect Tamlin. As you probably know or inferred from the synopsis, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with a sprinkle of East of the Sun and West of the Moon, a Norwegian folktale, and also Tamlin, a Scottish myth. Sarah J. Maas also added a sprinkle of political intrigue, especially at the latter portion of the story. The story is written in the first point of view, mainly Farah's point of view, and I don't know. I don't really dig that. I personally think that third point of view is much more objective when it comes to story. There are times when I feel like the narrative is trying to make us sympathize with Farah when I don't necessarily want to sympathize with her. For example, at the latter portion of the story, Farah was asked to kill two innocent fae in order to free Tamlin from Amarantha. Even though she does feel bad about that afterwards, this book almost justifies killing because the protagonist did it. So whatever the protagonist did, we're supposed to sympathize. Because sometimes I feel like I'm being forced to like Farah. I don't particularly feel strongly about Farah as a character. Even though I know what goes inside her heart and her head, I don't sympathize with her, and her character basically builds up around being stubborn and wanting to take care of others, putting other needs before her own. While that's very noble, I think that that's also an enabling kind of attitude, because she's the only one who hunts these animals. Her sister gets away not doing anything at all, and therefore it makes this Nesta and Elaine to be lazy. And another side of her character trait that I don't particularly dig is that she's so stubborn. Like the fact when Tamlin told her to stay in her room and she does the complete opposite is just, I think, crazy. I think that's just not only stubborn, not only reckless, but also it shows that she's quite arrogant. She doesn't particularly trust Tamlin's judgment. And I think that's also why I don't really feel the romance between Farah and Tamlin as real, even compared to Lucian and Farah's chemistry. Tamlin and Farah's chemistry feels so dim because, I don't know, like they don't really have that banter, and I was kind of looking for that, but I found very minimal to none, so quite disappointed about the romance. And talk about Tamlin, our Tammy boy. I don't particularly feel strongly about him either. I've heard rumors from the second book that he's going to be very bad. His character is going to be butchered. I don't know what happened there because I haven't read the second book. But I don't really feel he's particularly abusive or anything, at least in here. I don't think that he's the perfect love interest either. He's not particularly transparent with Farah, and he's quite distant as well. I don't think he's the warmest kind of person, but I can see that he's trying. He's trying to teach her how to read. He's trying to provide her family, even provide her with the painting supplies. I think that's quite sweet, but I still couldn't really feel that chemistry between the two. Like I said, the banter is what really going to make a big difference, at least for me. That I think Tamlin's characterization is quite shaky, it's quite vanilla compared to our boy Lucian. I swear, in this video, it just shows how much I love Lucian. I would definitely create an Instagram account just for Lucian as his fangirl. It's called Evolution. I think I'm a genius. Anyway, compared to Lucian character who has all of like this trauma, seeing his love Jasminda being tortured in front of him, and also having like his brothers not liking him, and he has to like move to this other court, and even like Farah has more banter with Lucian, like how Lucian kind of like flirts. It's just really fun to read. It's very engaging. Also, the fact that Lucian feels really bad when he hesitated to save Farah from the Naga. It just really shows that he's a man of conscience. I would like to talk about Farah's older sisters. So she has Elaine, and I don't know, Elaine is kind of boring for me. She doesn't really do anything. She's really passive. She's not the type of character that I would necessarily root for, but Nesta made an impression. There's even a line saying that Nesta is basically Farah's other side of a coin, and the fact that Tamlin's glamour didn't work on her is, I think, it's building up to something else. If it does, I would love to see more of her, but maybe don't make her frisky all the time. Like, in order for her to be properly rooted for, I think Nesta needs to have this vulnerability outside of Elaine. Maybe she has like this trauma. I don't know, man. I just love trauma. Like, maybe this is why I love Lucian. So, okay. One last character that I would like to talk about is Risen. This character not only catches my eyes, I think, but I believe this character also catches a lot of people's eyes. Here's the thing, with the first point of view, I do think that at worst it could be very biased, and at best it could be very persuasive. At least from Risen's bit, I do think Sarah J. Maas could totally be a lawyer because she's so persuasive. Like, if she wants us to like this Risen, she's going to make a narrative that makes Risen very likable. For example, the line Farah saying, "Oh, he's my savior," and then "thank you" couldn't cover up what he had done for me. And I think that's really, really persuasive. Okay, like, can we talk about the scene where Risen's taunting the Spring Boys about snitching Farah to Amarantha? Sarah J. Maas is super persuasive in her writing, so we could see that, okay, Sarah wants to direct us to like Risen in Calamai's scene. But in this scene where he orders Tamlin to back, Tamlin literally kneels for Farah's safety. It just shows how Sarah J. Maas could influence the reader to like or not like the character. So I think that's quite an interesting point of her writing. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing or good thing. Well, I actually think that it's both bad and good. Like, it's bad because sometimes it forces us to feel when we don't necessarily feel something. But other times when it works, I think it works. I think if Sarah J. Maas really wants to be a lawyer, maybe she needs to shorten up her writing, because obviously you can't write a case brief with 400 pages. Like, yeah. Oh yeah, and talk about that. I do think that her writing style is quite, how do I say it? It's like a Marmite. You either like it or you don't, because it's super flowery. Like, so this story is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The plot is just simple. There's not really a lot of things that happens here, but it has quite a page count. It's 400 plus pages, and it just shows that even with a minimal plot, she could write a huge book about it. It just shows how her exposition is really long. That might be a problem for some people, but I'm actually okay with the pacing of the story because of that slowness of the book. it makes me want to read it more and more. Like, there's nothing else that happens, so I'm just going to read it until I found something. Weirdly, that works for me because of that, but I would understand that not everyone's going to love the slow pace of the story. The story itself, I think, is quite typical, it's quite tropey, and probably because I already know the framework of Beauty and the Beast, and I've heard rumors as well. I mean, I don't necessarily know the particular spoilers that are in detail, but I hear rumors here and there. But I didn't expect that the ending was going to be that abrupt. Don't expect that it was going to be that easy to defeat Amarantha. She seems like a very comic villain. She's just there for the sake of being there. Okay, let's talk about the riddle. Like, the riddle is just not only cringy, it's super easy, and I think that's very unfortunate in the sense that if the riddle would have been more difficult, it would have been much more meaningful for Farah to guess that riddle. As we know, Farah is not particularly the smartest person in the room. I don't see that she has this sense of survival. I don't think that she's particularly analytical, even though she's very athletic. She's very good at doing physical labor, physical stuff, but I don't necessarily think that she's the most strategic person in the room. And that's not because she can't read. It's just, she's just reckless and she doesn't think about things that much, which is okay, but it's also dangerous. So I would have wished that they would go in a different direction, if make the riddle a little bit difficult and Farah's able to guess it. We could see that her characters develop from all this muscles, all this bronze, to this immortal lady who has a brain, who can actually reason things. And I do think that her power development is too overpowered. She has 7 powers from like 7 chords. I do think that's too much. I think it just makes more sense if they make her a mortal fae, but when it comes to power, it really is the thing that she must train herself so that she could be powerful. Or she could have like this one particular power, but it's just narrow and deep instead of fast and deep. So it implies that she could be the most powerful fae of all, which doesn't make sense because it's just spoon-fed for her. This book left me feeling dry. I don't really feel like the romance is convincing. I don't think they have a lot. Farah and Tamlin has a lot of chemistry. But with that being said, would I read the second book? Yes, because first the rumor, and then second, I really want to see what they done to Tamlin's character. And the third, from the Goodreads rating, I think the second book is definitely worth a try. I think it has like a 4.6 reviews. I think that's quite a high score. That's a really high score actually. And that Reese scene at the end where he just freezes. Yeah, I want to know what that means. Like, what happened? Like, is a big war is gonna come? Is Amarantha still alive or what? Would I recommend this book to anyone? Yes, especially to those who's looking for a very accessible, easy, high fantasy romance. This book is definitely for you. From that standard alone, I think I would have given this book 4 out of 5 stars. But considering all of the like the problem of the riddle, and also I don't think that Farah's character is truly developed, and the fact that she's overpowered, and I don't even care about the romance, I think I would kind of like deduct a score into 3.8. And I will also point out that this book is also flirts in the young adult and new adult genre, so you might want to take that into account. So that was today's review about A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you feel fancy, comment down below. What do you think about the book? What's your score? What do you think about the romance? What do you think about Tamlin? Like, seriously, what's the deal with Tamlin? Everyone's like, Tamlin. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope your tea is always warm for reading.